Why did any Indian trust a political party, the INC, established by a British person, Alan Hume? How can an Indian rely on it for getting independence? Were there any wise men in India at the time of independence who knew the reality of the Congress and opposed it? Well, Mr. Subhash Chandra Bose, he was no longer a congressman. Mr. Gandhi was no longer a congressman in 1946, 1947, 1948. I think Mr. Gandhi resigned from the primary membership of the Congress Party in the 1930s, sometime in the 1930s. Was it 1934, 36, somewhere around that time, maybe before that. Now, the main question is, why did Indians trust a political party that was created by the British? So, first of all, why did the British create this party? The British were aware that Indians had this desire for independence, for freedom from these foreign occupiers and oppressors. 1857 was a great example of what could have happened. The British faced this tremendous outpouring of anger. The whole nation went to war against them, and they somehow were able to suppress this. And in 1857, they destroyed every single royal family that stood against them, wiped them out, and then put puppets in their place. Puppets in their place. Okay, then and those puppets, their descendants still are recognized as so-called whatever. So, so what the British did, what Alan Hume, this guy did, is that he created a political party, the Indian National Congress, or whatever it was called that day. Those days, I think it was called that. And this political party, the objective was that it will become the movement that will channel the energy of the Indian independence movement, and it will be channeled in the right ways. No violence, no no real opposition of the British. All the leaders of this movement should be British educated, English educated Anglophiles whose first language is English more than any native language. Hmm? Most of them should have been educated in England, have a degree from England, and so on. And that's what you see in everyone except for Mr. Patel. And Mr. Patel was a die-hard loyalist of Mr. Gandhi, who was a British educated lawyer. Okay, so that was the purpose of this political party, to take the to first of all, it would be positioned as the only legitimate avenue for the Indian independence movement. Anybody who fought for Indian independence outside of this political party would be labeled as an extremist. I mean, I believe they called Bhagat Singh an extremist and a terrorist, right? So anybody who was not part of the Indian movement, independence movement, through this party was either an extremist or a terrorist, and they were treated horribly. They were all hanged and tortured and whatnot. And so that was it. So the objective was to make it appear to Indians that there is a political party that is taking care of our aspirations. A completely artificial, non-grassroots political party. Can you think of any more recent political party like that? I'm just saying. I'm not saying anything. so, so it was a fake freedom movement that was designed to delay independence for India. Okay, that's what it was. Now, in those days, there was no social media. In those days, the entire press was controlled by the British. So you could not write anything that was too critical of the British in that. You could, sometimes pretend to be slightly anti-British, but not too much. So the entire press was controlled with an iron fist by the British. There was no TV. The radio still wasn't there, I believe. Maybe it was there, but it was very rudimentary. And for most Indians, a radio was as expensive as buying. Most Indians could not afford it. There was no electricity in India, by the way, those days. So nobody knew about radio. You would have one radio in every city, medium-sized city, no radios in villages. Obviously, there was no TV, there was no internet, there was no Geo, there was no Vodafone, there was nothing. So the narrative could be controlled. You could spread any narrative you wanted. You could say through the media and whatnot that this is the legitimate political party that will achieve independence for India whenever India deserves it, and so on. So that's how it was done. So the wise, I'm sure there were wise people who could see through it. Who knew them? They would never be allowed to come up. They would be marginalized, and if they spoke too much, they would be taken care of. That's the kind of India it was. It was not a free India. It was India under foreign occupation, worse than the Nazis. These Anglos were worse than the Nazis, by the way. Maybe, but you don't know it. You don't realize it because your textbooks extol their virtues to the high heavens. So yeah, so that's the whole deal. That's why Indians trust in such political parties, and Indians are still so gullible even today that despite the age of social media, despite all the facts being there in front of you, many Indians still vote for certain fake political parties that were that serve other nations' agenda, and they still believe utter nonsense and lies and propaganda by certain YouTubers and whatnot. What can I say? Even today, Indians haven't grown up. Many, not all. Some of you are very wise. Those who watch me, thank you.